Ibrahim Traore, Ibrahim Traore, the people changing it, yeah. The streets of Waka, your name is loud. Ibrahim Traore, standing tall and proud. You carry the hope, you fight for the land. Ibrahim Traore, with a strong guiding hand. The winds of change are blowing strong. Ibrahim Traore, we've waited so long.
Welcome folks to Chockatable Media. Here is a breaking news. French espionage agent busted in Burkina Faso. A spy behind an NGO in Burkina Faso, by name Claire Dubois, a French woman in her early 30s, arrived in Burkina Faso, posing as the director of a Western NGO called Hope Forward, which claimed to support girls' education and women's health. She posed as a humanitarian focused on helping African women, visiting villages, schools and markets, and praising Burkina Faso's leadership on state television. However, behind this facade, Dubois was engaged in espionage. She was gathering intelligence on military sites, including military training centers, oil facilities and drone monitoring posts, under the guise of humanitarian work. She had 2 phones, one for public use and one for secure communication, and she sent encrypted emails containing detailed maps and satellite images of sensitive military locations to contacts linked to NATO and foreign intelligence. Burkina Faso's intelligence services flagged her activities and monitored her communications. President Ibrahim Traore allowed her to continue to gather evidence of her true mission. Eventually, she was publicly exposed at the National Conference on African Sovereignty, where the president presented her own classified documents and emails live on stage, revealing her spying activities to the world. There are diplomatic pressures for a quiet resolution, but President Ibrahim Traore has insisted on transparency and justice, emphasizing the betrayal of trust involved. Let's hear more from the part 3 of the saga. Please subscribe, share and like.
She simply stepped aside as 2 plainclothes officers walked onto the stage. They didn't touch her. They didn't force her. They just stood beside her, waiting. The cameras zoomed in. Traore looked to the crowd and said, "They send soft faces now. They send kind eyes, clean hands, and clever names. But beneath them are the same old plans." Claire was escorted down the stairs as the audience remained in stunned silence. One girl near the front cried, not because she supported Claire, but because she had believed her. "She said she was one of us," the girl whispered, "but she wasn't. And now, the world knew it." By sunrise, the entire continent had seen the clip. Claire Dubois, once hailed as a humanitarian, was now a spy caught on stage. Her own words, her own files, her own downfall. The video spread faster than wildfire. Twitter, WhatsApp, TikTok, Al Jazeera, BBC. Every outlet ran the headline: Traore exposes foreign operative, masquerading as charity CEO. Some tried to defend her. A French newspaper called it a misunderstanding. A US-based NGO said she was gathering data for research purposes. But no one could explain the emails. No one could explain the map. No one could explain the fake lipstick USB filled with satellite footage of Burkina Faso military sites. That afternoon, a secure line rang inside the presidential compound. President Ibrahim Traore answered it himself. On the other end, Alassane Ouattara, President of Côte d'Ivoire. "Excellency," Ouattara said, "I ask that we treat this matter with diplomacy. This woman holds cross-border ties. Let us handle it quietly." Traore didn't raise his voice. He didn't even pause. "She sent sensitive intelligence from your capital to parties operating in Paris and Washington. She stood in our villages with lies in her pocket. You can handle your guests however you want, but in Burkina Faso, we handle traitors one way, with justice." Silence on the line. Then a calm reply. "Then we may need to rethink cooperation." Traore smiled and said, "If cooperation means swallowing betrayal, Burkina Faso will go hungry instead." He hung up. Within the hour, a second request came. this time from the French ambassador in Ouagadougou. A private meeting, a quiet resolution. Traore declined. Instead, he walked to the National Press Center and gave one of the shortest speeches of his presidency. They ask us to forget. They ask us to forgive. But they never ask themselves what we feel when their operatives sit in our homes, shake our hands, and send our secrets across oceans. In the audience were villagers from the places Claire had visited. Mothers, teachers, even children who had been photographed. One woman stood up and said, "Mr. President, thank you for protecting our trust." That night, across Africa, people didn't just talk about the spy. They talked about the moment the mask was pulled off, not by force, but by calm truth. And Claire? She sat in a government facility just outside Ouagadougou. No cameras, no press, just a notebook, and the weight of the trap she thought she had set, now closed around her. 3 days after the arrest, Claire Dubois was still silent. No press statement, no apology, no embassy official could clean up what had already burned across the internet. Inside her holding room, she was no longer the smiling CEO who stood on stage. She was just a woman, staring at the walls, her mission collapsed under the weight of its own lies. But outside, Burkina Faso had already moved on, not in forgetfulness, but in strength. In a packed hall at the University of Ouagadougou, students held an event titled, "They Used to Send Soldiers, Now They Send Smiles." Paintings were displayed, speeches were given. But the most powerful moment came when President Ibrahim Traore walked in unannounced. He stood before the young audience and spoke plainly. They used to come with guns. Now they come with cameras. They used to hide behind uniforms. Now they hide behind causes. But whether they wear suits or scarves, whether they speak French or English, if they come to break us, they will leave exposed. The crowd stood up and applauded for almost a minute. But Traore wasn't done. He pointed to the projector screen, where a single sentence appeared, bold, simple, unforgettable. The next one they send will be received the same way, calmly, watched, and unforgiven. That line spread across Africa within hours. Young people turned it into stickers. Poets turned it into verses.
Thank you for watching. If you're new to this channel, consider subscribing so you won't miss out any of our latest videos.
Began asking tougher questions back home. Why do we keep getting caught where we claim we're helping? Meanwhile, the story of Claire Dubois became a symbol, not just of espionage, but of a larger truth. Africa is no longer soft ground. And Burkina Faso, under Ibrahim Traore, will no longer bow to diplomacy dressed as deception. As for Claire, she was eventually released, but banned for life from re-entering Burkina Faso or any allied Sahel nation. Her name is now remembered not for her charity, but for the moment she stood on stage, holding a microphone, and found herself caught, exposed, and crushed by truth.
Ibrahim Traore, the people changing it, the streets of Ouaga, your name is loud. Ibrahim Traore, standing tall and proud. You carry the hope, you fight for the land.